I stood in the foyer of the house, the late afternoon light spilling across the hardwood floors like liquid gold. The smell of fresh paint lingered in the air, mingling with the faint scent of lavender from the polished banister. The keys felt heavy in my hand, heavier than they should have. Maybe because they carried more than just the weight of metal. They carried history. They carried irony. From where I stood, I could see the grand staircase curving upward, the same one my mother had gushed about in a Facebook post 2 months ago. She didn't know that post had landed on my screen while I was sipping a cappuccino in my glass-walled office in downtown Seattle. She didn't know that the same week she toured this place, I quietly called my realtor and made an offer in cash. To them, I'm still the daughter who left too soon, who took risks that didn't make sense, who lived God knows where for years. That's the version they know. What they don't know is that in a few minutes, when they pull into the driveway and see me here, the truth will come crashing in, like sunlight through an uncurtained window. I was 20 when my parents sold our old house, the house I grew up in on Maple Street, with its creaky porch swing and the big oak tree out front that dropped acorns all over the yard in fall. It wasn't just a building to me. It was Saturday morning pancakes in the kitchen, my dad humming Johnny Cash under his breath, my mom folding laundry on the couch while the news droned in the background. It was my bedroom walls covered in photographs and clippings, the scent of my grandmother's lilac perfume still lingering in the upstairs hallway long after she passed. But then came the arguments. My father, Daniel, thought I was reckless for wanting to major in graphic design instead of accounting. My mother, Linda, called it a hobby, not a career. The tension grew until conversations were nothing but clipped remarks and sighs. The day I found out the house was sold, I wasn't even told directly. I saw the listing marked sold on a real estate site while I was in the college library. No call, no text, just gone. I drove back that weekend, heart pounding, only to find strangers' furniture already in our living room. I remember standing on the porch, my hand resting on the chipped white railing. My grandmother's silver bracelet, the one she gave me before she died, caught the sunlight. I could almost hear her voice. Make your own home, Ellie. No one can take that from you. It was the only thing that kept me from breaking down completely. That night, I packed everything I owned into the back of my beat-up Honda Civic. My parents didn't try to stop me. In fact, they barely looked up from the TV as I wheeled my suitcase out the door. I told myself it was the last time I'd ever let someone else decide where I belonged. I didn't have a plan, just a tiny savings account and that silver bracelet sliding loose around my wrist. But I knew one thing. If I couldn't have the home I loved, I'd build a life so solid that no one could ever sell it out from under me again. The first apartment I rented on my own was the kind of place you only see in before pictures. Peeling linoleum floors. A bathroom sink that coughed rusty water before it ran clear. A heater that rattled all night like it was afraid of the dark. I worked 3 jobs, mornings at a coffee shop, afternoons stocking shelves at a craft store, and late nights cleaning offices downtown. My hands were always raw from soap and paper cuts, my knees aching from crouching too long. I'd collapse into bed still wearing my jeans, waking up with coffee stains on my shirt. But somewhere between exhaustion and sheer stubbornness, I started to build something. One night, a customer at the coffee shop, a woman in her 50s with sharp eyes and a kind smile, noticed my sketchbook lying open by the register. She introduced herself as Margaret Lane, an art director at a mid-sized marketing firm. "You've got an eye," she told me, flipping through my designs. "Ever thought about doing this for a living?" That conversation changed everything. Margaret became my mentor, teaching me the business side of design, contracts, licensing, client negotiations. She'd push my work into the right hands, then stand back and let me shine. The first time I landed a paying design job, I cried in the bathroom between coffee orders. It wasn't much, a logo for a local bakery, but it was mine. From there, I took every job I could, even the ones that barely covered gas money. I learned to code basic websites, to pitch confidently, to invoice without apologizing for my prices. Slowly, my client list grew. First small businesses, then startups, then big companies willing to pay what my work was worth. And while my bank account got healthier, I didn't say a word to my parents. My social media stayed modest. Photos of sunsets, cups of tea, the occasional busy day. Post. I didn't want them to know how far I'd come, not yet. I wanted my success to be mine, untouched by their opinions. For years in, I landed my first six-figure contract with a tech company out of San Francisco. I bought a better car, upgraded to an apartment with a view of Puget Sound, and invested carefully. By the time I was 30, I owned a portfolio of properties, none of which my parents had ever stepped foot in. Then, one afternoon, my real estate agent, James, called with a tone in his voice I'd never heard before. "You're not going to believe this, Ellie," he said. "There's a house on the market I think you'll want to see. Address is 415 Meadowbrook Lane." When he read the address, I froze. My parents had just moved into that house a few months earlier. They'd posted smiling pictures on social media, bragging about the dream home they finally deserved. "I'll take it," I said. "No inspections. Full cash offer." There was silence on the other end, then a slow, incredulous laugh. "You're serious?" "Dead serious." In that moment, I realized I wasn't just buying a property. I was buying back control. They thought they were surprising me. A week after the closing, my mother called. "Ellie, we're having a little get-together on Sunday," she said. "Thought you might want to see the new place." Her tone was casual, but I could hear the pride humming underneath. "Sure," I replied, keeping my voice light. "I'll be there." I arrived early on purpose. I wanted to stand in the heart of their dream home before they walked through the door to really feel the moment. The living room was bathed in soft afternoon light, bouncing off cream-colored walls and gleaming oak floors. A modern chandelier sparkled overhead, like frozen raindrops caught mid-fall. My heels clicked softly against the wood as I wandered, taking it all in. The marble countertops in the kitchen, the French doors leading to the backyard, the wine cellar tucked neatly beneath the stairs. Every detail whispered of money and comfort, the kind my parents once said was out of reach for people like us. I was standing by the bay window when I saw their car pull into the driveway. My father got out first, straightening his jacket. My mother followed, smoothing her hair, a wide smile already forming. They stepped inside, mid-laugh, and froze. "Ellie," my mother asked, confusion creasing her brow. "What are you doing here so early?" I let the keys dangle from my fingers, the metal catching the light. "I live here," I said softly. My father frowned. "What do you mean you live here? This is our—" "No," I interrupted gently. "This is my house." For a moment, the only sound was the hum of the refrigerator. My mother's smile faltered. My father's jaw tightened. I walked over to the kitchen island and set a folder on the marble. Inside were the closing documents, my name printed in bold letters as the owner. "I bought it," I continued. "Paid in cash. The realtor didn't tell you because I asked him not to. I wanted to surprise you." My mother blinked rapidly, as if trying to process words in a language she didn't quite understand. "You bought her home? How? Where did you get that kind of money?" "I worked for it," I said simply. "For years. While you thought I was just scraping by, I was building something. A business. Investments. A life." My father's eyes searched my face, looking for any sign of exaggeration, of a joke. But there wasn't one. "You never said anything," he muttered. "I didn't think you'd want to hear it," I replied. "Every choice I made, you called a mistake. Every risk I took, you told me would ruin me. So I stopped telling you." They looked around the house, as if seeing it for the first time, their expressions shifting, pride tangled with something heavier. Regret, maybe. Or shame. "This is a lot to take in," my mother said finally, her voice quieter now. "I know," I said. "Take your time. I'm not here to hurt you. But I'm also not the girl who left with nothing anymore. I've earned my place and my say." My father's shoulders dropped, the fight leaving him. My mother just nodded, her eyes glassy. For a moment, we stood there in silence, the weight of the past pressing in on all of us. And then, slowly, my father extended his hand toward the folder, running a thumb over my name on the deed, as if it might vanish if he blinked too hard. I gestured toward the couch, the same cream leather set they'd probably posted online a few weeks ago. "Why don't we sit down?" They did, my father leaning forward with his elbows on his knees, my mother clasping her hands in her lap. I stayed standing, the keys still looped around my finger. "I'm not asking you to leave," I began. "This can still be your home. But if we're going to live in the same story again, the rules are going to be different this time." My mother's brow furrowed. "Rules?" "Yes," I said firmly. "I spent a long time proving, mostly to myself, that I could build a life on my own. I didn't do that to go back to being treated like the reckless kid you thought I was." My father straightened, his voice low. "And what exactly are you asking for?" "Respect," I said without hesitation. "For my choices. For my work. For the fact that I got here without your help." I paused, letting the words hang in the air before continuing. "No more dismissing my career as a hobby. No more assuming I can't handle my own life. And if we're going to have a relationship, it has to be one where we actually talk, not where I find out life-changing news on the internet." My mother shifted uncomfortably. "Ellie, we didn't mean—" "I know," I said, softening my tone just slightly. "But intention doesn't erase impact. You selling my childhood home without telling me. That hurt. And I carried that hurt into every step I took afterward. It made me stronger, yes, but it also made me wary of letting you in." I sat across from them, leaning in. "So here's the deal. You can stay here rent-free for as long as you want. But in return, I want honesty. I want conversations where you actually listen to me, even if you don't agree. And I want you to start believing that I know what I'm doing with my life." My father's gaze dropped to his hands. My mother's eyes glistened, her lips pressed tightly together. "This isn't about control," I added. "It's about building something healthier than what we had before. I don't want this house to become another symbol of distance between us. I want it to be a second chance if you're willing to take it." For a long moment, no one spoke. Then my father exhaled slowly. "All right," he said. "We can do that." My mother nodded, wiping at her eyes. "I can try," she murmured. It wasn't a perfect answer, but it was a start. I placed the keys on the coffee table between us. "Good," I said. "Then welcome to my home." Over the next few weeks, I noticed small changes. My father started calling just to check in, not to give advice, not to question my decisions, but simply to ask how I was doing. My mother, who used to roll her eyes when I talked about design, began forwarding me articles about new marketing trends, sometimes with little notes that said, "Thought you'd find this interesting." They weren't grand gestures, but they were real. One Sunday afternoon, I came over to drop off some paperwork. My mother was in the kitchen, humming to herself as she baked, and my father was out back trimming the hedges. I wandered upstairs, drawn almost unconsciously to the small study at the end of the hall, the one they'd turned into a reading nook. On the shelf, I saw it, my grandmother's silver bracelet. The one she'd given me years ago, the one that had caught the sunlight on the day I left home. My mother had placed it in a shadow box with a little brass plaque underneath. It read, "Make your own home." For a moment, I just stood there, my throat tightening. That bracelet had been my compass through the hardest years, a reminder that even if I didn't have a place to return to, I could create one for myself. Now, here it was again, not hidden away in a drawer, but displayed in plain view, as if to say, "We see you. We know what you've built." When I came back downstairs, my parents were in the living room. They looked up, and for the first time in years, I felt no tension between us. Just space. Space for something new to grow. I smiled and picked up my bag. "I'll see you next week," I said. As I stepped outside, the late afternoon sun warmed my shoulders, and I realized something. I hadn't just bought a house. I'd rewritten the ending of a story I once thought was already over. The keys were still in my pocket, but they didn't feel heavy anymore. Because home isn't the place you're handed. It's the place you claim and keep on your own terms.